Things just took a shocking turn for the St. Louis Blues as an NHL insider revealed a massive trade report around the St. Louis Blues and captain Brayden Schenn as Doug Armstrong has a huge decision to make heading into the remainder of the season after very early struggles. We're going to break down all this, reports linking Brayden Schenn to 3 teams, and so much more in this episode. You're not going to miss it. Before we get into that, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone watching. And if you haven't hit the sub button yet, we're trying to reach a goal of 5,000 subscribers. So if you want to stay up to date on everything to do around the Blues, like game recaps, trade reports, anything you can think of, make sure to go down and hit that free subscribe button. It means the world, and we're trying to reach our goal. But Darius, we got to dive straight into this. And before we get into the trade reports around this team, the Blues did come off a huge win versus the Buffalo Sabres. A bit of a statement, especially a bounce back from Hofer. But the big thing with the St. Louis Blues going into this game, we've seen Jordan Kyrou scratch. This is a team that's trying to build an identity. Jim Montgomery is making a big push to make sure every player is on track and on the same thing. But this is a Blues team, Darius, that is still struggling. Looking at the standings right now, just at the bottom of the Western Conference, above the Calgary Flames, of course, but that is a team that's looking at a rebuild. What is your thoughts on the win last night, and do you think this changes any aspect of this team, or are they still going to look at serious changes and scratching players to prove a point?
Just like at the end of last season, the Flames are right under the St. Louis Blues in the standings. But yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. In terms of the game last night, just to touch on that quickly, apologies to Matthew Joseph. Had a fantastic game, and he has been playing very, very well so far this season. I said yesterday I liked the scratching mark of Jordan Kyrou because I think that it sent a message to the rest of the team that anybody can get it. Jordan Kyrou actually has been playing not bad. He has been putting up points. He's definitely not been the worst player on this team. Could he be playing better? Of course. But, if you're looking around the league, most coaches scratch a guy who is underperforming, right? I wouldn't necessarily say Kyrou is that. I would say that he's just sending a message that anybody's going to get it on any given night if you guys don't start playing well, and they did against the Sabres. So that was nice to see. But because of the struggles so far this season, because that is just one win and they're still at the bottom of the standings, things could change very quickly. And we know there's other reports from other insiders as well that Doug Armstrong is not the type to sit on his hands. That's what a lot of people are saying. So watch the Blues over the course of the next 5 to 10 days is what people are saying in terms of they could be making a move, and it could be the captain, Brayden Schenn, which I think is pretty shocking, Mark.
And we see the report coming from Frank Ciravelli. And listen, there's another report linking them to teams from another insider as well. But going into this report, as he makes the scouting rounds, Doug Armstrong has let teams know he is open for business. Keep an eye on the Blues captain Brayden Schenn as his deal moved from a full to a 15 no trade clause this summer. Now, we see a lot of reports coming around Schenn season after season, linking him to multiple teams, Darius. But what is your thoughts on it being this early into a season where they're struggling, where we do see the captain have 6 points over 15 games? Fans are not loving the way he's playing, but he is a crucial part to this team. But what is your thoughts on this coming this early at this point?
You may not love the way he's playing, but this guy's a huge part of this team. If you trade Brayden Schenn away, that is a clear sign to me that you don't think you're going to make the playoffs, and it's a failure. It's done. The season's over because this is your leader. This is your captain. Who's going to take over the leadership group? Of course, they have assistant captains and all of those things and alternate captains, but who's going to take over the leadership after that, right? Like, this could be a very disastrous move, I think, for the room itself. And there's other guys that I would trade before Brayden Schenn. That being said, to play devil's advocate to myself, I guess, at this point, but if you look at his contract and if you look around the league, there is massive demand for a top 6 centerman, top 6 forwards in general. This is a guy that only has 3 years left on his deal at 6.5, and in a rising cap world, if there's teams that want a guy who's won a Stanley Cup, yes, is a little bit older, has some control, like, it makes sense for a lot of teams, and he only makes 6.5. I say only, it is a little significant, but there's a lot of teams that can afford that, especially moving forward if they want to contend for a Stanley Cup. So makes a lot of sense for some other teams. And we keep talking about the youth movement as well. That's something to consider. I think it would be pretty detrimental to some of the younger guys too, to actually trade him away. Yes, it would free up a roster spot for maybe Dvorsky to take over, which he already kind of has because they've moved Schenn around so much already between center and both wings at this point so far this season. But I think that having a guy like Schenn around who's been there, who's done that, who's won a Stanley Cup, he's familiar with the culture of the organization, all of those things, moving him out could be pretty disastrous, I think, for the culture within that room. So that's the reason I wouldn't do it. But I think it does actually make sense. And I think Doug Armstrong could be looking at, listen, he's 34 years old. He's got a couple of years left. Maybe we want some of the younger guys to come in now, especially if it doesn't look like we're going to make the playoffs. I feel like it's something that could happen.
And I think the big thing is looking at the team, if Dvorsky didn't step in and take over the third line center immediately, if they didn't sign Suter, this would not be a conversation we would be having as fans going into this early part of the season. I want to stress that enough. We're looking at 15 games into the season, talking about trading the captain, seeing Jordan Kyrou scratched. It feels like crazy work, but I do agree with you. Listen, this is a contract that teams are going to drool over. This is a guy that any contender wants to add to their team. So if Doug Armstrong is truly out there looking at teams saying we are open for business, if you have multiple teams calling them and saying, hey, we want this player, if they're going to offer a king's ransom, it's hard to turn down. Yes, listen, Schenn is a huge part, but if you're going to miss the playoffs, if you want this youth movement, and going into the report from David Pagnotta, I think Schenn is a guy that we're going to be hearing his name a little bit more later on in the season, especially if they can't pull together a solid run here. Really part of the playoff decision come December. So it seems like this is a team in the next month is going to have serious questions. And we can see from David Pagnotta himself, linking teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs for the 100th time. We see the Ottawa Senators and the New Jersey Devils. Darius, looking at all these teams, we know this is a team that needs to bring in younger defensemen that are ready to step up. Maybe even a guy on New Jersey like Nemec or someone like this, but it's going to get interesting. And what type of package would you want back for Schenn if they do want to move him?
Well, I think if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think that Brad Treliving is drooling over, Brayden Schenn, because we've heard rumors dating back to last season and early last season that they were interested and they want this player's services. Now, for the Toronto Maple Leafs, they have to move out money, right? And the St. Louis Blues can take on, especially if they're moving out Schenn, a lot of money. So, you can talk about Nick Robertson. He's a guy that can come in and provide a lot of scoring as well. I think that he could score 30 goals in the NHL in, specific locations and, depending where he's playing in a lineup. You can ask for some younger players. Like, I think that could make a lot of sense because the Leafs, they know they have the skill to break open games within the regular season. They know they can get to the playoffs. They don't care what it looks like anymore. They want guys like this that can make an impact at the, in the playoffs, right? So I feel like a team like that's drooling over that. The Senators, exact same reasoning, and you can get almost the exact same return in terms of a young scoring player from them or a prospect. So that could make some sense. And then you move towards more of a youth movement with the team if it doesn't look like you're making the playoffs this season. So we'll see what happens with that. But even New Jersey, I mean, they're in the mix. They're at the top of the conference, right? They could like him. But in terms of return, all of these teams have guys, younger players that don't necessarily fit where they're going right now. Obviously, they want to hang on to them and will hang on to them, but they could afford to get rid of them. So I think that makes a lot of sense for a couple of these teams. But again, I keep an eye on the Leafs because Brad Treliving, I think, really, really would like Brayden Schenn.
And I think at the end of the day, listen, if they're going to make this trade, I don't want this to be a panic trade in the next week or two because this team's struggling. This is a player that's very hard to come by, a captain material player that has led this Blues on multiple runs. We've seen it last year. This team can get hot. I do hope Doug Armstrong holds on to this and we see some success come from this team before a panic move. But fans, what is your thoughts on this? Is this a current team that you want to see some of the veterans moved out to get the youth movement? Maybe Otto Stenberg steps up. Maybe you look at Justin Carboneau coming in next season and you have some options that you're fine with moving out. What is your thoughts on all the rumors? Let us know down in the comments. And speaking of comments, let's go straight in the comments today. And it kind of ties into that. The Blues need to get younger and quicker. Worst case scenario, you can't get worse. And that's the point. I mean, listen, you can technically drop a tiny bit in the standings, but being last or second last, it doesn't matter. This is not what the Blues want. And it's going to be very crucial over the next month on what dictates the future of this Blues team. Go ahead and leave a comment on all your thoughts down below, and you could be featured on comments of the day. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back in another episode, so keep your eye out for that. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius. And listen, Blues fan, it can only go up from here, so fingers crossed we get some success going forward. But